Every night at 12:17 a.m., a bell rang in a small European town. No one pulled the rope. No church records mentioned it, and the bell tower had been sealed for over 40 years. People who went outside to listen. They never stayed the same. Some stopped speaking entirely. Some packed their bags and left the town forever, without a word to anyone. And 3 of them were buried without a cause of death. This is not a ghost story. This is about what happens when an entire town agrees to forget something, and the sound that refuses to be forgotten. The town is called Vel. You won't find it on any tourist maps. It's just a quiet, isolated place somewhere on the border between Germany and Austria, completely surrounded by forests that feel older than memory itself. Think cobblestone streets, stone houses with thick walls, and foggy mornings where the mist clings to everything. At the very center of it all stands a church, and attached to the church is a bell tower that no one talks about. I came here as a documentarian. My official reason: to record and preserve disappearing rural cultures before they vanish. That's what I told everyone. Anyway, my unofficial reason, the real reason, came from a single, cryptic line I found in an archived letter tucked away in a dusty Viennese library. It read, "If the bell rings after midnight, do not follow the sound." There was no explanation, no signature, just a palpable sense of fear pressed into the old ink. It was a warning that had been waiting decades to be read, and I knew I had to find out what it meant. My first night in Wallenrook, I decided to test the waters. I was sitting in the town's only cafe, a cozy little place that smelled of old wood and coffee. I leaned back in my chair and casually asked the owner about the church bell. The entire cafe went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. A woman in the corner quickly crossed herself. An old man sitting by the window turned. His eyes narrowed, and he whispered, "Tourists should sleep early." I just laughed it off, pretending I didn't notice the sudden chill in the air. But I didn't forget. That night, I made sure to stay awake. I watched the clock on my phone tick past midnight. Las 12:15. Las 12:16. Then, at exactly 12:17, the bell rang. It wasn't a loud, booming sound like you'd expect from a church bell. It was different. It sounded close, eerily close, like it was ringing not from the tower, but from inside the town itself, inside the very air I was breathing. My curiosity got the better of me. I crept over to the window and pushed it open, peering out into the dark, misty street. And that's when I saw it. All up and down the lane, lights in the houses started turning on one by one only, to be shut off almost immediately. It was like every single person in town had been woken by the sound, checked the time, and then remembered something they were desperately trying to forget. A shared, silent ritual of denial. The next morning, the town was back to its quiet, placid self, as if nothing had happened. I knew I needed to talk to someone who wouldn't just shut me down. That's how I met Lucas. He was the local historian, a man in his late 30s with tired eyes that looked like he had slept properly in years. I found him in the small town archives, surrounded by stacks of yellowed paper. I told him straight up, "I heard the bell last night." He didn't deny it. He didn't look surprised. He just sighed and said something far worse. "It rings every night. We just pretend it doesn't." I asked him why. Why the secrecy? Why the fear? Instead of answering, he led me deeper into the archives, to a dusty, leather-bound ledger. He opened it to a specific section. Old photos, old death records, and a list of names. Between the years 1978 and 1983, 17 people had died in Wallenrook. They weren't old. There were no illnesses listed, no accidents recorded. The official cause of death for every single one was the same 2 words: sudden cessation. They just stopped breathing, stopped moving, stopped existing. And all 17 of them shared one chilling detail. They were all found outside, in the dead of night, right after the bell had rung. After weeks of trying to understand the strange silence that fell over Wallenrook each night, Lucas finally told me the rule. It wasn't written down anywhere, not in the town charter or on some dusty signpost. It wasn't enforced by police or any formal authority. but it was known by everyone. An invisible law that held the town captive. He said, "If the bell rings after midnight, you must not look for its source. You cover your ears, and you wait for it to stop." I asked him why. What were they so afraid of? He just shook his head, his face pale. "Because the bell isn't calling you," he whispered. "It's counting." The story, as he told it, was a town legend that felt far too real. Back in 1978, the old clock tower, the one that stood silent all day, was scheduled for repairs. The town council hired a team to fix the rusted mechanism. 3 workers went up into the belfry. One morning, by evening, only 2 came down. A search party was organized for the 3rd man. They scoured the woods surrounding the town for days. They found him, eventually. Not injured, not lost. He was just standing in a small clearing in the forest, his eyes wide open, a serene smile plastered on his face. And his hands were clamped tightly over his ears. The official report was baffling. The autopsy concluded he was physically unharmed. His heart, his lungs, all his organs were perfectly intact. But the coroner noted something deeply disturbing. The man's inner ear, the delicate structures responsible for hearing and balance, had been completely destroyed. It was as if he had been exposed to a continuous, impossibly loud sound, a vibration that had literally shaken him apart from the inside, but had left no other trace. The town stopped talking about it. The tower repairs were abandoned, and the rule was born. On my final night in Valenrook, the night I was supposed to pack my bags and leave this unsettling place behind, something changed. The bell rang earlier. My clock read 11:59 p.m. 1 minute before midnight. That had never happened before. A sudden panic swept through the town square. People who were strolling just moments before started running. I saw faces contort with a primal fear I didn't understand. Doors slammed shut. The heavy sound of wooden shutters closing echoed through the streets. The entire town went into lockdown in seconds. But this time, the sound was different. It wasn't just coming from the direction of the tower. It grew louder, more intense, seemingly coming from everywhere at once. It felt closer. I should have run. I should have hidden like everyone else. But a strange compulsion, I need to finally understand, pulled me forward. I walked against the tide of fear, towards the source. When I reached the base of the clock tower, the truth hit me. The sound wasn't coming from the belfry high above. The air up there was still. The ringing was coming from beneath it. My eyes scanned the foundation, and there it was. A heavy iron ring set into the flagstones, almost completely hidden by overgrown moss. It was a door to a hidden stairwell, and it was unlocked. My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat a drum against the overwhelming chime of the bell. I pulled the door open and descended into the cold, damp darkness. The sound grew deafening with every step down. At the bottom, there was no bell. There was no giant mechanism, no clapper, no polished bronze. There was just a small, circular stone chamber. The air was thick with the smell of earth and something else. Something ancient. And carved into the stone walls, scratched deep into the rock, were names. Hundreds of them. From floor to ceiling, the walls were a tapestry of forgotten people. Some names were faint, worn away by time. Others looked fresh, the letters sharp and desperate, scratched deeper than the ones that came before. As the ringing reached its peak, a painful, bone-shaking crescendo, I finally understood. My hands flew to my ears, but it was useless. The bell wasn't a sound I was hearing. It was a vibration I was feeling. It was coming from the very ground beneath my feet. From the earth itself. It was the echo of something buried deep below. Something the town had tried to entomb. Something that was never, ever meant to be remembered. I left Valenrook the next morning, just as the sun was rising. My bags were packed. My car was ready. No one came to see me off. No one waved from their windows or said goodbye. It was as if I had already been erased from the town's memory. Just another visitor who got too close to the truth. As I drove away, I looked back at the silent clock tower one last time. The bell still rings there. You can know it does. But I realize now, It's not a ghost story. It's not ringing to haunt or to kill. It rings to remind. It's a reminder to the people of Alanrook that forgetting has a cost. That building a town on top of a buried secret doesn't make it go away. And that silence, the collective agreement to not speak of something, is sometimes the cruelest, most binding pact people can make. Every place has a sound it tries to bury. Every community has a truth it agrees not to hear. But memory doesn't just disappear. It doesn't fade into nothing. It waits. It seeps into the soil, into the foundations. And when it finally rings, it doesn't ask for permission.